Okay, Peter,
Yeah,
we're live on air.
thank you.
Okay, so we were talking about making some progress with a DXF import widget for Chilipeppr. Do you want to just start by talking a little bit about the master plan, if you will?
Certainly, I wouldn't mind. So the basic idea is that over the last couple of months in Chilipeppr, between yourself and John, you've done a lot of work to create a CAM toolchain for the Eagle imports that leverages off of paths within free.js and then generates G-code out of that. And I found this rather cool library online called free DXF, which takes a DXF and converts it into paths in free.js. So it should be a relatively simple matter to combine the two and end up with a way for us to get DXF data into 3.js, which is the 3D viewer inside of Chilipeppr, and from there generate G-code using the same sort of CAM toolchain that you have for the Eagle import. And that's the master plan.
Absolutely. It's even better because once we figure that part out, that solves the two-layer issue we've been having with Eagle, because right now it's very indirect.
Yeah. So that would help.
Grab your finished 3JS object, feed it into the code that we will masterfully write in the next several hours, and then you get G-code. And then once we figure out inflation, we can actually put like the entire CAM toolchain right into Chilipeppr without having to rely on an external program. It's very exciting stuff.
That is going to be freaking awesome.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Okay, so if you want to jump right into it, I'm going to pull up your screen feed, and you could turn your camera off if you want to improve the bandwidth.
I'm going to stop my camera.
Yep.
Just to save a little bandwidth. Bye, guys. On a video feed anyway, not bye forever.
Yep, your voice will continue.
Yeah. Sadly, I've only got a 4 megabyte link, so I need to save as much bandwidth to keep the screen share going well enough.
Okay. So, let's see. So you've got my Cloud9 open with the Eagle widget.
That's correct.
Yeah, and let's just spend a couple of minutes, and let me just give you the walkthrough. I know we've already talked about it a little bit, but I've got some people that are hopefully going to be watching that could appreciate a little bit of an introduction.
Okay.
So, okay, I think it's going to be better if I switch over to my screen sharing just a little bit here.
Yeah.
Okay, so sharing my screen. Okay. You can see my screen?
I can see your screen, yes.
Wonderful. So we've got Cloud9 open here, and we've got our HTML on the top left, CSS, got our JavaScript here, and this is the part that interests me most. So just going through the Eagle widget, just the way the layout works, we have all of our dependencies at the top here. So this would be 3JS, all of the fonts. We use Clipper.js to do a lot of the unions of the geometry before we start parsing for G-code and making toolpaths on it.
Yeah.
And then here in a CP require, this is how we test the widget. So if I wanted to run this independently, as in not as a widget in Chilipeppr, but on its own, all of that code in CP require at the top is what actually gives us the 3D viewer. We actually have the drag and drop widget sitting in here somewhere so that I can just drag a BRD file right into this full view here.
Yes.
And then we could also actually nest widgets within widgets. So, for example, we had a solder mask and then the pick and place and the dispensing. Those are all separate.
Yes.
And what would happen is they just get injected into this one. And then using that methodology, we can just test everything. So we can load as much stuff as we need to for testing.
Now, I must say, 8 months ago when I last worked on Chilipeppr, I didn't really grasp the concept of Chilipeppr.load. That all it does is it inlines an external file on the fly. And that is pretty amazing because that's how you're inlining an external widget right away.
Yeah, so I'm taking this little widget here, and I'm giving it this entire 3D viewer with just this little paragraph of code right here.
So easy. Awesome stuff.
Yeah, so here we've got the 3D viewer. We've got this is the drag and drop widget, which just sits there so that when you load in the BRD file, it'll pass that. And
Yeah.
then flash message is if in Chilipeppr you're aware of this little white box with a message showing up right here. Yep, that's that. You don't even really need to load it. It just works, but better to have it.
Cool.
Because I think I've seen one widget that doesn't even have this code here, and it'll still show a flash message. But I might be wrong about that.
It might be required from a test from one of the other widgets already, and maybe embeds it that way.
Yeah, it's very possible. It gets loaded everywhere.
Yeah.
And then CP defined here is the actual
widget.
This is the object, if you will, that the entirety of the widget sits inside.
Yes.
And then at the top here we have these properties, ID, name, description, and then the URLs get automatically filled by our runme.js node server.
Excellent.
Okay. We have between 2 and 4 methods that show up. We have publish, which is calls or information that the widget outputs when certain things happen. Subscribe is a subscription is listening to things that other widgets or other elements are sending out. So, for example, this is just for documentation here.
Yes.
So when you drag and drop a BRD or another type of file in, we actually listen to that. Actually, that's here. Apologies. So that's a foreign subscribe. So we listen to the on-dropped, and then we take that in, and you'll see that in a little bit.
Quick question. What's the difference between foreign publish and foreign subscribe and subscribe?
Right. Okay. So there are things that are global, and then there are things that are happening within the construct of other widgets.
Okay.
So something like sending a message.
Yeah.
I believe that to just be a plain old publish.
Okay.
But the way this is written, so on dropped is something that's
specific
that's published
to the drag and drop widget.
by the drag and drop element. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess that's how it works. Yeah. It really doesn't matter all that much. As long as it's correctly stated in the beginning here, you just say this later on and it works.
Okay. Cool. I was just wondering about that earlier today.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's the best explanation I've got. I haven't had that many issues with this type of thing because I just use the existing code and it does what it needs to do. Yeah. Over here we've initialized a bunch of stuff. You can see some of my new code here. So what I do, I actually added a checkbox recently for mirroring the bottom layer. This way, people don't think that it gets flipped. It doesn't get flipped yet. Just the render gets flipped, but the toolpads don't. So there were a few little, I don't want to call them incidents, just a few people didn't realize.
Yeah, if you haven't watched your other video, you wouldn't understand what it's about, yeah.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Okay, so once we get to the interesting stuff,
and then there's a couple of first a couple of functions that comes from the template as well, and then the real interesting stuff.
Yes, I should open that. Because template has set up the UI from local storage.
Yes.
And I think that's going to be interesting to you, right?
Yes, that's interesting for me for that. It's not yeah, it's kind of interesting for the DXF, but it's more interesting for me for the work I'm doing on the 3D viewer. Yeah. But I figured that one out. John sent me nice documentation about it, so it's not an issue. And on the other hand, he doesn't want me doing it the way I wanted to do it, which I totally agree with. It doesn't make sense to do it that way.
You do agree or you do not?
No, I do agree.
Okay.
The way I was thinking too laser-oriented, and called it laser mode and wanted to stick it in the viewer, which doesn't make sense for a viewer because everyone uses the viewer.
Yeah.
So what the new plan for that one is to rather listen for the publish event from the TinyG and Gerbil widget to see what are we running, and if we are running TinyG, then we just set the variable to what it should be, and if it is Gerbil, we set it to maximum 255, and if it's that sort of thing, automate it instead of having a button. So I'm fine with that. I just need to finish it.
Do those widgets already publish that type of data?
Yes, there is a publish, although it's not working at the moment. So.
Yep, so that's what I was concerned about. I didn't know if we were listening for data that existed or not.
No, it exists. The TinyG widget has a function that publishes it. Um, but overall, I'm not having much luck with the publish and subscribe. So that's part of why you're here tonight, is to help me figure out why.
Yes.
Because I am getting the drop, but I can't intercept it. But yeah.
Cool.
That's
Okay, well, let me just quickly show you setup UI from local storage.
Yeah. I've got it open.
And then we'll switch back to your screen and we'll jump right into it.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's two very simple functions. There is local storage.getItem.
Yes.
You give it the ID and it returns the value. And then there is .setItem. So for example, in the Eagle BRD widget, when we get the on drop and when somebody drags in a board, we verify that it's an Eagle file, and then over here, once we verified that it is the correct file type, we set the entire contents of the file to be saved in local storage. And this way, if I have to reload my workspace or refresh, or I have to close everything and come back 3 days later, once I open the Eagle widget in Chilipeppr again, it's just going to load up that last board file right there.
Fantastic.
It's wonderful. And then that's the same way that we can set and get UI elements. We could do the same thing for the DXF.
Any data. It's very nicely wrapped up. I was expecting it to be a hell of a lot more difficult, so I'm happy with that.
Well, if I can explain it, it can't be that difficult, right?
No, but it's nicely built, so it's set and get. Nothing more fancy necessary.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's switch back to you.
Okay. I've got your widget open. You want to switch to mine or yours?
Yeah, so we'll work off of you.
Okay, so for my widget, I took the template widget and copied that. I've so far only changed the IDs and everything else as outlined in John's tutorial video. And then, that's still the button setup, the init, the hello button I've even left there even though it doesn't have any use. UI storage is still there. Show body, that's all from the template. Fork setup template. Okay, so setup drag drop and on dropped, I renamed it to on DXF drop just to avoid some confusion. These I copied from your Eagle widget.
Okay. Could you make the JavaScript view wider so I can see the ending of those functions? Perfect.
Good. Okay, so I'll do the same setup drag drop.
Yep.
I do think I've got it. I just want to double check my sanity. That was late last night. Do I actually initialize it? That might be where I'm getting stuck. I've got a function defined, but I don't have it anywhere else. So I'll need to run it somewhere higher up under the init, I assume. I think I just figured out why it's not working.
Wonderful. Hey, glad I could be here while you figured it out.
That's always how it works, when you start explaining. So I've got the setup drag drop. Okay, then in the drag drop, we're waiting for the on dropped event. When on dropped event happens, we fire our on DXF dropped. And on DXF dropped, I'm just logging the data to console just to see what's inside. And I publish a flash message to say that we have a DXF loaded. And the rest of it I've commented out because that's as far as I got yesterday because I couldn't figure out why I'm not getting the drop event.
Yep, we don't want to parse for something that doesn't exist.
So let's see your setup. What's setup drop event?
Yep.
Setup drag drop. So you've got it there in do my own. You've got a function called do my own. Else.
Okay, so do my own drag drop. That's part of the testing. Yeah, I'm not even entirely sure. Wait, hang on, is it?
No, it's not under the testing. It's under CP define.
Yeah, it's inside init. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that makes sense because if it's not in the init, then we're not subscribing. That's why we're not getting the subscribe. So cool. Let me copy that over to mine.
And you do have the line in for and subscribe, right? Yes, you do. Perfect.
Yes, we're looking at yours. Switching back to mine. I do have it in for and subscribe. Let's double check it. Like I said, it was late last night, and I was working on the 3D widget. So between the multitasking, it's possible that I slipped up. Widget.js. foreign subscribe. Yes, I do have on dropped in my foreign subscribe. And then under my init, okay, so let me just compare it to your init. Init function. So you have there do my own drag drop as a function of that. And here you do. Like that. Then we'll be able to set up the drag drop. Save it. Running.js is running. Just do the preview. Actually, I don't need to do that if I'm running locally. Sorry, bad habit. Let's try straight away.
We'll just scroll down. Okay, you already have the link, exactly. As long as it's running, you're good.
Let's get a sample DXF and see what happens now. Because
sure.
Before I was getting the drop event showing in the console log, but I wasn't actually getting the on drop function to trigger. But that makes sense. I wasn't actually subscribed to it. Let's get this one. So there's the on drag over. So I'm there and release, getting a drop. Let's go up a little. So that was the publish call, the on drop publish.
And that is the contents of the DXF.
And then, yeah, but then it jumped to open G-code from text instead of jumping into our custom, to our own drag drop.
Okay. Let's do a quick search for that.
I think that comes from the 3D viewer because it also has its own drop on the 3D viewer.
From what I can tell, it's not a function of
so it's definitely not in. Yeah, it's also not in my template widget at the moment. And for testing purposes, what else do we have? We have on the test, we have the 3D viewer, and we have the Flash, and we have, that's it.
Flash.
So it has to be in the 3D viewer then, which we can check.
Yeah, do you want to just compare the block from my Eagle widget for the CP required test? Yeah, so the very top, CP required test, yep.
I'm quite sure I didn't copy yours entirely because remember I changed the order. I did copy yours and then I changed the order of some things around because I wasn't getting the drag drop in front of the 3D viewer.
Right.
But I did copy yours, but the direct pass and look the same now. But I can always copy it again.
No, we're good, we're good. Just scroll down a little bit. I'm comparing.
That's yours, I'm scrolling. What are we looking for?
I don't know.
As in test.
No Flash.
So it's very little. You have the Flash, drag drop, 3D viewer, and that's all that you've got.
Yep, nice and simple, sure.
And then EW in it.
Perfect.
Yeah. Drag drop, let's see. Yeah, that's it. And let's just compare in mine as well under the test. I changed the order of this around, but there's the 3D viewer. There's the drag drop. And there's the Flash.
Yep, all good.
That's all. And then there's in test. So that's the save. So that's not the issue. Let's just see in the 3D viewer if we have an instance of OpenGCode from text here. Yeah, we do. So the way I interpret that custom drag drop of yours is we intercept the publish on a higher priority, and then we return false so that the next widget, which is in the 3D viewer, doesn't get that publish.
Exactly.
So that's what's not working on mine, but it is working on yours.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't see any reason why your different named functions would cause a problem, but for simplicity, I would recommend that we just keep the onDrop function called that. Okay. Not onDrop, the one that it calls, which is it has DXF in the name.
Well, I have DXF, but we can put it back to onDropped as well.
Yes.
This is what yours looks like. Let's go back and look at yours on dropped. That's the top one. Oops, spanning. That's the publish. So setup, drag, drop. We have that, and we should have that executing now.
Yep.
And then that launches the on dropped. And there you're on dropped. Now, right now, I took out this if data match, blah, blah, because we obviously don't want to check if it's an eagle file in this case.
Exactly.
So with mine, oops, sorry, misclick. Mine has the on dropped function, and I'm just waiting for that console.log straight away and publish a flash. And I do then I first log it just to see if I've got it. And then I do check if the name matches .dxf. But we're not even getting that far.
Right.
So let's save again. Oops. Save. I need to do that because we're talking to the widget directly. Maybe I should just put some logging into the init. Let's just make sure that we do get to set up drag drop. I'll feel more comfortable knowing it did.
Sure. I think you've realized this. There's so much data in console. Occasionally, I switch over to alerts.
You know, it's good to have it there. You can always filter, so it's not an issue. Keep it that way.
Fair enough. The other thing I do is in my log, I'll just put Ray, a couple of exclamation points, and then I'll filter for that.
You know what's irritating me a little about the rest of the whole of Chilipeppr's console logging is that there's no way to identify from which widget the message originates. If I'm working in a normal way where I've got a couple of JSs in the header, it shows in the console log this was generated on line 314 of main.js. And this came from, but because it's all inlined, you don't know where it's coming from. So I've taken up the habit of putting in, this is from the DXF widget, and then we did do setup, drag, drop. Then when I look at the console log, it's the DXF widget that logged this. I think that's something we should look at adopting.
Cool. I understand where you're coming from. Usually we're just debugging one widget at a time, so we kind of have that context.
Yes, but that's because you're familiar. And remember, the whole goal of Chilipeppr is to make it easy for developers. So me, who don't know where OpenG code from text might be coming from, it's nice if it tells me where it is.
No, of course. So the intermediate answer, that's why I'm here, to answer questions until you know, it gets fixed, or whatever the case may be.
Okay, we've got that done. Let's refresh and see what we see in the log, if we do the subscribe or not.
Sure.
Next the init. So I don't see that one running. So let's change that init to just run it. Because I think that's not happening. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take what's inside setup, drag, drop. I'm going to put that straight in the init.
Hey, so apparently we have 3 viewers now, so the quota has been met.
Ah, told you it's going to be more.
Hello, people.
I'm just going to do this for now. Instead of running the function, let's just put it directly in the init.
Sure.
Now we've got a drag drop setup. Let's see what happens.
Now we're back down to 2 viewers.
Now we fire the on dropped.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, so now the question is, I commented out the local storage. Do you think we should still do that? It makes sense to you to keep that?
It does at some point in time. I don't necessarily see a reason to complicate it right now. Like that's
for now.
Yeah, that's 5 minutes when everything else works.
Okay.
Which I will say at least 20 times in the next few hours.
Okay, that's fine. That's perfect. So good. So now we get data. Now, if it matches, then you fire the function called this.open. Well, not this.open because the function name was open. Now I'm going to pull over into my function add because now we need to start integrating the existing code.
Well, bear with me a minute. So let me just
Okay.
explain to you the open function. That is line 713 in my Eagle. I'm there right now.
713, heading
You
up.
know how to do Control G to go to a line number?
Yep, I do.
Perfect. Okay. Yep.
It's just a case of finding the right window first.
Sure.
See,
So
here's the one where you
the
store it.
open, exactly. Yeah. So the open function is the part where we differentiate between a new file was just dragged in versus we're loading up chilipeppr.com/workspace for the first time, and we need to get an existing item from local storage.
Okay.
So
that has to come in.
yeah. So we call open. Here's where we have the if file. We once again verify that it's of the Eagle format that we want.
Yeah.
And then we actually start calling things. So remember when we first started this, I was explaining to you that the Eagle widget was a great template because it's its own 3D viewer and it does all that other fun stuff.
Yes,
Yep, you're there. So this is where all that fun stuff happens.
Yeah.
So
good.
We keep this, and then towards the end, so right around line, yep, 763 is where you'll want to start doing your own stuff.
Yeah, instead of
draw 3D. Yeah.
Yeah. So where's the Eagle file is now the content of the DXF up to this point?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so then I will fire off, instead of draw 3D, I will then fire off my process DXF.
Well, actually, bear with me a moment. You're going to start to have problems around 757 because you don't have an Eagle object. So yeah,
and I'll comment that out. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll just start.
I'm not going to worry about. I'll comment out all the drawing functions like the clear Eagle board that we don't need. I'll clear the 3D viewer because that makes sense.
Exactly.
I don't need that. There I still have the file, and then I can pass the file into my own function from there.
Absolutely.
And button, I'll leave that there. So this is the function that we must then copy. Open. Let's bring that in next. Comma. Okay, so open function data info, browser, e-file, and passing data, that's fine. This must be widget DXF. And I do have the drag here as well, which is DXF. I need to add that already. I don't have a last drop, so I'll just have to, oh no, that's fine, that's from local storage, so that's fine, we'll save that. That's fine, that's still fine. Not worried about that for now. So active layer I don't have. I don't care about that. Eagle.
Yep, that's board specific.
I don't have. Yeah.
This we want.
Eagle canvas we don't have. That we have. Exactly. And this we have.
You can just
I don't
dump
have
all that.
I'm also gonna comment out the callback because I don't have a callback in my current function.
Exactly.
Okay, good. Now I'm gonna start stealing code from my other project from LaserWeb.
Okay. Just bear with me a moment. Is the object inside your LaserWeb widget Eagle, or have you changed that to DXF or something of that nature?
Which object?
So I'm looking at line 500, so it says this.eagle. So we have this huge Eagle object that holds all the data in the Eagle widget.
Is that defined in this widget now?
Exactly. Because I think I saw something DXF related or nothing at all.
No, it should be DXF, but where's that eagle object defined in yours?
Okay, there's an entire section. Remember you told me you didn't want to deal with the how we parse the eagle board? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me just show it to you real quick. We have Control F eagle colon null at line 712.
Got it?
So
That's the
that's
eagle object.
where that's declared in a sense.
Shall I just declare a DXF null for now until we need it for something else later?
Sure.
Right above open as well.
And then just for argument's sake, if you scroll all the way down in Eagle, I'll give you the line number in a minute. We have the entire constructor for what Eagle Canvas is.
Well, luckily I won't need that. But let's
Yeah, exactly.
just a sec. If for nothing else, at least to give respect to the developer.
Of course. And for entertainment, obviously. I'm at line 5215.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have a lot of constructor for how we parse the Eagle board. And I'm just going to scroll through it because, yeah, it's a lot.
I'm also scrolling. That is.
Yes, of course. It's very substantial. Yeah.
I can imagine.
This is just the parsing of the Eagle XML.
Yeah, that's just.
So the board is just all stored in this XML data. That's your .brd file. Yeah, I'm explaining for our viewers.
Oh, sorry.
Potentially throw out there. Yeah. Yeah, and then this is just to kind of put that into a better format that we can deal with, right? You know, hey, here's a list of elements, here's a list of traces, so on and so forth. And then eventually the draw 3D functions, which, now this is worth showing you real quick. So if you hop on to line, let's say 780,
yeah.
So this is kind of where we left off, right? We have the end of the open function calling the draw 3D.
Yeah.
So draw 3D, so we have like a whole chain reaction of functions right now. So draw 3D is trying to call on draw 3D ready multiple times. So we take a few attempts to fire up the 3D render. And then if you keep scrolling down, yes. So if you keep scrolling down to around 840, so eventually on draw 3D ready gets called, and this is what draws the signal wires. So the traces, the polygons, the elements, the vias, and the dimension of the board. And these functions each do a huge amount of, you know, 3JS rendering and so on and so forth. So moral of the story, you're in the right place. This is where we do all the fun stuff.
Exactly. Because this is what render.js here and my project does, is to take DXF data and draw it as free.js vectors, which is exactly what you're doing here. Except mine's less convoluted. It's a lot easier.
You don't say. Yeah. It's just for the record, the way these functions work is, and this is part of the problem that we're experiencing, is that these functions do the 3JS rendering, and then they also run Chilipeppr.js directly onto that. And then that's what eventually invokes the toolpath generation. So it's
do you do the Clipper offsets while you're drawing, or?
Well, it's right after.
Question. So do you do the Clipper offsets during the phase where you pass the DXF and draw the free.js? I mean, not the DXF, the BRD. Yeah. Or do you do that in the step where you take the free.js objects and convert them to G-code?
So if you just go back to the Eagle widget for a moment. So I'm just going to right-click line 853, draw 3D signal wires, and then I can jump to the definition. Can you?
Yes.
Perfect. So just the way these functions work is, if you just scroll down with me a little bit. So first we do a lot of parsing. So this 4 var signal key, this is essentially
Yeah.
going through our
Awesome.
existing parsed data, and now we're creating, what to draw essentially with all
Yes,
of
yes.
this,
The layer
and
items.
then and we're looping through all the traces. And
For
then
each
towards
wire,
the end
yes.
here, this line right here, var mesh, I'm on 3848, a little farther down.
Got it.
Yep. So at this
For
point in
mesh.
time, we are creating,
Okay.
we're using clippers. So this invokes another function. We're using Clipper.js to create our object of all the traces.
Which is that one.
And as you can see, that's just a whole bunch of other code that I really
So,
haven't dealt with all
so
that
is
much.
yeah, okay. That's actually something I know you're not too familiar. Is Clipper is used both to combine all the individual lines into a continuous path, and then also used to combine the to add the offset.
No, no, no. So just the first thing of what you said, Clipper is what we use to
Okay, combine
union
all the
all
individual
the
line
paths
segments
exactly.
into a
Yep.
path.
Yep. Clipper is amazing for
If the
unions.
which is if it has the same signal name inside the board file.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so essentially,
But
instead of all the individual line segments, we're creating a single
yes,
continuous loop
path.
around each trace.
That's awesome. And
Okay,
because as someone who loves Eagle, that makes a lot of sense to me.
absolutely. Okay,
Because then you can
and
do
then if you could
isolation
just
milling around that trace, not around that
exactly,
signal, not around the trace. Yes.
exactly.
Okay, good. Okay,
Now,
so
while
I'm
you're
happy with
there, eventually that calls another function that has inflate paths in the name, and then that's what actually causes the inflation. I don't know if it calls
getting
it
inflate path.
directly but somehow that gets triggered.
Oh, getting inflate path. It only
The
appears
issue.
24 times in the thing, so that happens quite a lot. Inflated SMD, inflated cutout, inflated strokes, mole
Yep,
paths.
I think it's
So we
fun.
might be able to use this get inflated path. What do we pass
Exactly.
to get inflated path? Let me just see. Go to definition. We give it a path and a delta. What's the delta? Is the delta how far to offset it? Because that would be
That's a good
fun.
question.
Where's delta? I didn't see delta. There, delta times scale. Offset it path. Interesting one. Okay,
So
but
I'm
honestly,
online. Go ahead.
sorry, I want to interrupt you. For the purpose of what we're doing tonight, I really don't care about the offsets. That's critical for us moving forward to get a CAM solution out of this, because obviously we want to take the curve of my plasma cutter into account. We want to take the width of the next guy's end mill into account.
Yes.
But honestly, we can get that later. If right
Absolutely.
now, if we can just get the path there, we can inflate it later. And from a selfish perspective, for me to do laser cutting, I don't need to offset the path.
Yep, I got
So
you.
I'm happy. I'm
Yep,
happy as long as I can follow the line.
sure.
So yeah. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I
Wonderful.
do understand where that's coming from.
Yep. But it gets
Good.
invoked from within the loop inside each of those draw 3D functions, which has been
Yes,
the
I've got it.
issue. Right.
What I can do is I can start from draw 3D and drill my way down to understand that a little better. And that's too
Of course.
convoluted. That's one of those things you'll have to sit down and draw a little mind map on a piece of paper to understand what it's doing, which I've had to
Sure
do a
thing.
couple of times. So that's fine and easy to. I'm saying easy. It's absolutely not easy, but I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I'm happy with that. Okay, so
Relatively easy.
now I
compared
have a
to
question.
the original stuff that was done. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna start off by introducing what we're going to use.
Sure.
We are going to be using GDS estimating, which is B. Zoll Smith. He created two fantastic libraries. Storefront estimating. Created two fantastic libraries for GDS estimating, which is a DXF parser. So let me just get back to the GitHub profile. A DXF parser, which parses DXF files to JSON. And then 3DXF, which takes that JSON data and draws 3.js objects. Now, I've already worked with these two separate libraries inside of LaserWeb, And I've got them nicely integrated into my function where I can use the Chrome file reader. Yeah, there. I read it as text, and I take the result of that text read and I pass it into this process DXF function, which sits here. Process DXF, where it then loops through all the JSON entities and then triggers the relevant draw entity function. So if it's a circle, it draws the circle. If it's a polyline, it draws the polyline. If it's a text, it draws the text. And because I also use Chilipeppr's 3D viewer inside of LaserWeb, I've already gone through all the hoops to change this code to work with the same scene and object names and open text from G-code and all that. So this is all working. I think I closed Chrome earlier, unfortunately. I had it open. I can always open it again. Let me just show you how it works.
Sure.
CD
Quick question while you're doing that. These two libraries, they depend on each other, you said, right? So the first one makes JSON, the second one goes JSON.
So my question, I actually wanted to start off with a question, but then I realized I first need to introduce where I'm going with it. So my immediate question is now, should I change this code and add it to widget.js, or can we embed other JS still into these functions? That's where I'm a little unfamiliar with how Chilipepr ecosystem works there.
It's better to do it all in the one JS just because we haven't really done separate files.
You do. You're importing Clipper.js.
Yeah, well, those are external. So the way do you remember the lines at the very top of Eagle, the path and the shim, right?
As soon as I saw them, I thought this is what I'm going to have to use.
Yeah. So those all those all get from the web. So I'm not entirely sure how to pass another local file with those.
I see your point. Well, because runme.js won't inline them into the rest. Yeah, I've got your point.
I can't say for certain. That's not even runme.js. We've had those since before we've switched to Cloud9.
No, but I mean, if I add my own, if I upload my own JS here into Cloud9, then I'm quite sure that RunMe will not inline them into auto-generated widget.
That's a very good point. Yes.
Okay, so I'll have to rework the code. That's fine. I just want to show you what it does.
The beautiful part is, as you saw in Eagle, you can have your own prototypes and constructors and whatnot at the bottom, outside of the main object.
Yes.
So
I noticed that. That's what I'll have to do because it has to sit outside the object, which is fine. It's totally fine. Okay, so this looks a little bit like a mess, and I don't know if the colors come through nicely on the screen share. One is a slightly reddish line, and the other one's a blue line. Can you see them?
Well, so far I'm just seeing your Cloud9.
Am I sharing a window, or am I sharing? Oh, I'm sharing a window.
Yes.
I'm not sharing a desktop. Sorry. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
So this is inside of LaserWeb. Yeah, I think you can see a bluish line and a dark red, wine red kind of shade.
Below it, yes.
Yeah. So the current library we use, which is Andrew Hodel's from the Milcom project, works 99% of the time. But the part here is supposed to look like it looks in blue. Actually, let's just no, I won't be able to open it in QCAD because I'm not sharing my desktop. But again, long story short, it's supposed to look like the shape in blue, but it comes out looking like the shape in red. So we can see this arc, instead of being processed as an arc, it's processed as a straight line, taking a shortcut across here. You can see my mouse now. Yes, you can.
Yes.
So this arc, instead of following the line of the arc, goes straight. This arc, the bulge is calculated completely incorrectly. So there's a couple of funny things going on. Sorry, just jumped off completely. A couple of funny things going on in the Milcom library, and that's why, from a LaserWeb perspective, one of my goals now for probably about a month or two has been to get a new working DXF library, and that is where I stumbled across GDS estimating Swan. Half an hour, my angel.
Wonderful.
10 half an hours. Sorry, just my little one coming to say good night. Okay, I'll come 5 minutes. Okay, bye. Shh. Bye. Get the new one from the fridge. I'm busy. Bye. Sorry. Anyways, okay. So getting a new library has been a long priority, and that's during the research for looking for any other libraries that work. I stumbled across this amazing work, and it didn't take me. I think it took me less than half a day to get it integrated and working. Now, the 3D viewer I'm using here is the exact same code, copy and pasted from Chilipeppr. I didn't know it at the time. One of the other developers contributed it, and I didn't know it. And then later, looking at Chilipeppr, I realized, oh, that's where you found it. So that was quite easy. But in this case, it's excellent because that means all the CAM work that I've already done and all the previews and all the raster work and all that I've done inside of LaserWeb can now very easily be ported back to Chilipeppr. So this is the functions that I have, and I need to figure out how to get those functions into the widget, and then we'll be able to draw the same paths inside of 3.js, and then comes chapter 2 where we convert that to paths. So let me switch my screen share back to the other one.
Wonderful.
Relatively wonderful.
So does the kid like 3D printers or lasers more?
Me?
No, your child.
Oh, she? No, she's an artsy kid, not a techie.
Okay. So lasers.
I've given up on trying to force it on her, so that's fine. Yeah. She's turning 6 this year, so.
Okay.
Or early days.
Got time.
Okay, so where were we? So we have the data, we have the file. So now we need to bring in this function. But now you say we need to first do that. So outside of the construct, you say you have your own code outside of it.
Yeah, so on my Eagle, scrolling all the way down.
Wait. Oh, so that's
once again,
all the way
line.
Outside of it.
Yep. Yeah. So 5343, we have Eagle Canvas .prototype .load URL, so on and so forth.
Goodness gracious, that looks easy. So I've uploaded the files here into Cloud9, not to use them, but because of the screen sharing issue, it's easier if I can do it here. So
yeah, I agree.
Control F, process, DXF, and I can copy paste from here.
Sure, could you just scroll through the whole thing real quick? I haven't seen this before.
Okay.
Just do a quick intro.
So there's 2 scripts. There's the 3DXF script, and let me just double check if I'm pulling in the DXF parser as well, but I think it's already part of the other one. 3DXF. Sorry, I'm just working off screen on the other one. Index.html. Let's see what I've got in the header here. Yeah, I'm only using the DXF parser and the renderer, so I've got both files. So this consists of 2 files, the free DXF file and the renderer.js file. So free.dxf deals with calculating the vectors and doing the maths to calculate the arcs. The bulge geometry deals with taking the arcs and calculating the bulge of the arc. And then if we scroll down, the more fun part of it starts a little lower after all the mathematical functions. So there we set up a free DXF viewer. The scene is a new scene. I don't think I actually use all of this. I don't call the viewer function anymore. It's still there, but I don't call it. I don't call the controls because I have my own controls already from that. So basically, I think our entry point is the draw entity stuff from here.
Okay.
I'll have to go and look again on my code where it goes. I start with process DXF, which is in renderer. Some of the code might be in both. Let me just go here, process DXF. It's always easier to start from where you are. I know you want to scroll from the top, but let's just see what we do. So I pass the DXF data to process DXF, and then it goes through and splits the data entities, and for each entity, it does draw entity. Okay, good.
Wonderful.
And draw entity is both inside of renderer and in 3.8.
Okay.
I'm probably using this one.
So, quick question. Whenever I see something like renderer, I always get a little worried because we have very specific ways that we draw things. So,
and that is?
A lot of just normal 3JS code, you'll see scene.add or scene child add. We have a very, very specific scene add function inside.
Okay, so you don't use the normal one.
So yes. So what I found the best way is when you have a loop and you're going to be calling these types of functions in the loop, that you should just return the geometry.
Okay.
You return the geometry and then we force it into. I have in Eagle. I have a big scene group 3 object.
Yeah. And then publish it once.
I guess, and then I keep So I keep pushing things into it, and then outside the loop, I'll do a single this dot scene add, and then within the parameter, big.
Okay, but it's still. But at the end of the day, you still add scene. Okay, so this one currently here, we do pass the geometry for that entity, and an entity in this case can be a line, but in the case of a polyline as an entity, it will be a bunch of lines. So once we've parsed the entire entity, then we do a scene.add immediately for that object. So we might
we can do that.
But
you just need to change scene.add to scene capital A DD. That's probably the easy way to do it.
So
yeah, no dot.
Oh, scene A.
Perfect.
Oh, scene add like this, a function.
Scene add. Yes, exactly.
And we need to take a note of that.
So bear with me a moment. The other concern is the scope of that is within the code itself. So it's within the CP define. So it reads this dot scene add, and it should probably be from within the CP define, which is why I was originally suggesting that we just return it
in the CP define of the widget.
Yeah. So I don't think I'm explaining very well. Can we just take a look at Eagle for 2 seconds so I can...
I'm on my way there. I'm just searching for scene. This.scene re-add my scene group. That's activate widget.
So don't worry about those.
What are we looking for? Scene add. What was
this dot scene add. And you'll just start to see this dot mesh. Yep. Group. Various things.
Uncommented mesh.
Those are all from within the main widget, not from the external, what do I call them, functions, prototypes, constructors, whatever the case may be.
Yes, yes.
So I think the best bet is from within your libraries that you just return.
Yeah.
You return the geometry.
Just return the geometry, and then we do an external call to ones.
Exactly, and then
just add the mesh ones. Why do we do it this way though?
You know, I'm not entirely sure. I just know that we have a scene add function.
Yeah.
And the reason for it is because there's so much different stuff going on. There's the 3D viewer, there's the cone, there's the everything else that you see in the view.
It's really just to keep UI from locking up, in other words.
Well, no.
Weird. It would make more sense to add a bunch of objects continuously than one big add.
Well, no, it's because we have to maintain
break anything.
It's not about breaking, it's about maintaining. It's if you I think it's about maintaining and just having control over everything.
Well, we have 6
entities. If you just do this scene, you could wipe everything out.
Yeah, but look from my perspective, we're only adding 6 different types of objects, so it's not like we'll be. I don't know. It's not like the Eagle widget. A DXF is a file. That's it. We're not touching any individual things. We're not milling bias and not doing that. We're going to process the file as is. I think maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot now thinking this way, but
and maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just telling you the best practices that I've seen. We can definitely try your
Um,
way. I'm actually very curious to see what happens using the code as is.
yeah, we can play with that and see. Let's run through what it does, anyways.
Sure.
Then we'll sleep on that. We can always just buzz John as well and just find out what the logic behind that is. Obviously, don't want to go that way if it breaks something, but it's working now. I mean, it's not
Oh,
like
yes.
I'm not using the 3D viewer from.
Yeah.
Actually, I should be able to
That
open
was
that.
my concern, is that I've already seen it work, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm talking about.
Yeah. The only thing that I'm not doing in the viewer at the moment is converting it to paths. So
Okay.
that was actually that was the question I asked John as well, and I think I've asked you as well. So we first add all the objects and all the meshes to free.js, and then a separate function gets called to convert it. So it doesn't matter how it gets onto the scene. We take the objects in the scene and convert them to G-code.
Well, not the entire scene. I would have a specific 3JS object or group, I forget the exact terminology, that
Yeah,
contains just all of those things.
in our case, it's a group we call object.
Perfect. Okay. So
So,
yes, just put everything into there, and then we will
and
run Clipper or toolpath generation, whatever, on that.
that's fine. Then I think we're very close to doing that, anyways. Because that was, I'm actually going to open up LaserWeb in
Sure.
Cloud 9, then it's part of the screen share, and we can just have a look at it.
Sure.
It's
So,
easier
quick
than
question.
trying to switch screens.
Since we have to force everything into a single group anyways, doesn't that kind of solve the question of whether or not, how we're going to handle the adding to the scene?
Yeah, that's what I wasn't. I thought you said it has to be that function to add. That's what I was confused about.
Yes.
So
So
we do
the concern is
a
not
scene
that
add.
function.
I don't know if we do a group. Now you've got me confused. I can't remember that far. The funny thing is, I didn't have to look into this guy's code as much as I probably should have, because it just worked when I put it in. That's the disadvantage of developing.
So yeah, I've got multiple groups. So yeah, so my code is var big scene group equals new 3.group. So that's what we should use.
That new DXF. I'm just going to refresh my memory.
Sure.
DXF2. I put this in the week before Christmas already, so that's like 2 months ago.
Yeah. Still faster than your postal service, from what you've said, right?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for parcels from last year October that hasn't showed up. Okay, so I do the process DXF. Process DXF sits in renderer.js. Process DXF runs through and does the draw entities. Draw entity looks at the entity type and calls the point in that. Then it does, I'm just scrolling fast, I'll call your attention to it. Now it immediately adds it to the scene, each individual object. Circle. You know where I'm confusing myself? My current DXF library actually generates G code. First generates G code, then we use the same Chilipeppr open G code from text, which is a group. But that's when it's already G code, so we won't be able to do that right away.
So is that what we've seen working right now?
Sorry?
Is that what we've seen working right now?
Yes. It's adding individual. Yeah. The progress we've already made is literally everything as it gets loaded up, or as it gets passed, gets drawn individually.
Gets drawn as 3JS geometry or as
a scene.add already.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so it is still 3JS. Okay.
Yeah. We can play with it. I'll keep in mind that's a pitfall. So if something later down the line doesn't work,
Sure.
You also don't know what the reason behind it is, so we'll have to ask John first.
Yes.
So I won't do too much work. He is awake already. I'll buzz him a question just now and we'll see what he says.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So then theoretically, I can copy paste these contents of files right below the object in the widget.js, and they should be available for me to call.
Not exactly, because there's no prototype. So we have to make them constructor. I've been thinking about the best way to do that.
Yeah, because yours has the
Because you can
function
nest
equals.
functions within JavaScript. What if you just made one huge wrapper function for everything? That way you wouldn't
I've
have to
seen
change
that.
all the
I've got a
individual
sample of
nodes.
that. My DXF
Okay.
function actually has that, the
Yeah.
SVG parser and laser. So I'm not a developer, but I can copy and paste the hell out of
Yeah.
code. That's
And
all
I'm
it
not a
is. You have to do.
programmer by any stretch either, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that one. The SVG
I just
reader.
know how to think. That is
Yep.
pretty much my entire set of qualifications.
So you mean a wrapper like this that says DXF parser equals and then wrap it around?
Maybe, but maybe it would be here. Let me look.
Is there something in your widget we can use?
Yeah. So again, that line 5,300, whatever it was.
Told you
Yeah.
5,300.
So like DXF parser 5,343, right?
5342. Okay, cool. Prototype.node.jl.
Yep. So something like that, right? So DXF
Uh,
parser dot prototype dot whatever you want to call the big one, and then just nest everything inside.
that's called the renderer. So
The what?
renderer. In the current code, it's called the renderer.
Ah.
Mm.
Okay.
The DXF renderer.
Okay.
So it'll be DXF widget.prototype.render.
Okay.
RENDRER.
Make a DXF parser so that there's no confusion. Or a
Yeah.
DXF renderer. Just keep
Yeah,
widget out of
use
it
actually
because
the
technically it's
parser.
not widget, right? Like
Yeah, it's
Eagle
not widget.
Canvas here isn't widget.
Yeah, that's a canvas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And URL and CB, what's this for? That's
Oh,
load
don't
URL.
worry
Oh,
about any
okay.
of that.
Okay, I see.
I just care about the
That's fine.
first
We don't
three
need that.
little pieces right here.
Yeah, I don't even need arguments. That can just be function bracket.
Exactly.
Okay, let's see if that works. Widget.js at the bottom.
Perfect.
And then we bring that in there.
Yeah. Do you want to do a quick test before we just copy this huge chunk of code in?
Let's save that and see if it still works. You mean?
Yeah. So what I had in mind is if you just declare a function A and a function B inside
Oh, you mean inside there?
that prototype,
Let's go an alert, yeah.
and then function A calls function B, and then you would call function A from the main
Oh, from the
widget.
widget. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yes.
Because
Because that's what we need to accomplish ultimately. We have, a whole bunch of functions that call each other,
yes,
and
yes.
we want to
We
be
want to
able
see if we can
to
call from inside back to outside.
exactly.
Let's do that. Sorry, select. Just using the same sort of caps. Print from prototype. Oops. We can use that Hello World button, which is still there.
Okay.
Just waiting for it to come up. Excellent. On hello click, we do And no. What did we break? Not even, oh, I'm filtering. Sorry. Typo. Line 509.
509. Okay, let's see what happens.
That's still in the send to G-code stuffies. 509. Why is that a typo?
Okay,
It's the
don't
end of
worry
that
about
function.
that.
It's the coming from there. Closing bracket from that
Okay.
dwarf ED function.
What about the parenthesis?
Sorry?
There we go. The parenthesis as well, right? Yep, perfect.
Yeah. Sorry.
This is most of what development with me looks like. Is there's a problem from somewhere else. We make a change. We're not aware of the previous problem. And then we realize, hey, this doesn't work. And then we try fixing the new code, not knowing that the problem already existed. Okay. What are the line numbers? Is that a 523 for DXF not defined? And then what was the other line number for Chilipeppr? Hey Peter, when you have a minute, take a look at line 757 of Eagle. You see, it looks like we're declaring Eagle Canvas. So we might have to instantiate it using that type of line right there. And that was inside the open function. I don't know if that's relevant, but that's the only reference to Eagle Canvas I could find inside the CP define. Now you can't call that just inside the CP define, so I would have you put it inside some function. You could put it inside init for now. Now, if this doesn't work, you can just forget about everything I said, and we can try it your way. Okay, 527. Hey, did that work? Hey, Peter, can you say something just so I know you're still with us? I haven't been able to hear anything you've said for a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello. Okay, be careful with that line right there. What you're going to want is bar that equals this.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Don't worry about it.
uh,
But if you're going to do what you don't know, do it correctly, and then continue not knowing what it is.
yeah, that's true. I just want to see
You
more.
don't have to
I
worry
remember it's
about
got
that
something to do
when
with.
you go ahead.
No, I want to say there's something in Java like that. That's that context thing of a function is inside of a function, so you have to call it with the context.
Kind
Or
of.
am I
So
wrong?
when you have this, right? This is representative of the function that made the call.
Yes,
It changes when you use it inside of a function.
correct.
So sometimes we make a var that equals this so that, you know,
So it points to the parent actually.
correct.
So that's what I was hoping here. So on button clicks parent, but that's still even higher up than that. So it's not going to work.
Yeah, so this
Okay,
shouldn't
well,
change anything.
you know what? The fact of the matter is I'm just being lazy, and now we're wasting time on being lazy. So all I need to do then is basically rewrite this couple of functions inside of renderer.js to have the same struct. Instead of equals function, have the colon notation that the
Yep, pretty much.
function in here use, and then just put them before the closing parenthesis at the bottom. And then we can
Yes.
play with it and see if it adds it to the scene. I
Yes,
think,
but there's one caveat, which is if any of those
yeah,
functions call any other of those functions, then you
they
have to
also need to
add
be there.
a this dot just to make sure that it's correct.
Yeah, okay, yeah, this dot. You see, if I'm not mistaken, I'm gonna, let's just look at I just want to compare when I looked at the code that Andrew pulled out of the 3D viewer. There's a function here called G-code line. Oh, G-code line, yes, line group. It's a function that was literally copy pasted across. One word. Sorry. I just want to see what the difference is because we've already ported some code between the two. See, this was this dot get line group equals function inside of Chilipeppr, and inside of LaserWeb, G-code viewer, G-code parser. Line group. See, this we basically just dropped the this, and then it worked in my code. So any function I bring over, I'll just add the this, and we'll be done.
Exactly.
Technically. Okay, so then I don't think I should keep you too much longer on the call. I'm going to sit then down for the rest of the night and port that code in first. Then once, because obviously you helped me a lot getting the drag and drop to work. So now I can actually drop a DXF, get it rendered onto the free.js canvas. And then once that is working nicely, then we can maybe have a follow-up session in a week or so, or during the week if you're available, whenever.
Yeah,
and then start looking at how to get the G code out. I think,
Sure.
sorry for the viewers that missed it, but you've already run me through the generate G code for Maling and those functions already. I haven't looked at them enough to be productive tonight. But I think if I go and look at them, I think I'll be able to figure out where the next step is going to go.
Do you want to take 5 minutes and just do a recap of that right now?
Of what I'm doing?
Of whatever it is that you need more clarification on.
No, I don't need clarification yet. That's my point. I haven't looked at it enough to know if I'm confused. I'm taking this one step at a time from getting it working, building up. That's just always been my way of developing this sort of thing because of my skill set. It's easier to get the file. Yes, I have the file. Okay, now let's see if I can parse the file. And then, yeah. So let's do it like that. Once I've got it now to the point where it works just like LaserWeb and I can view the DXF in the 3D viewer, then I'll need your help again. But before I call on your help, I'll first look through the links you sent me.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay.
I'm just thinking about one other thing, which is you haven't been able to get the publish from the Garble or the Tiny G widget. So we're gonna have to think about that. Yes, we haven't
got that working. Do you have 5 minutes? Let's close out of. Okay, so
I do. If you want to show me, I'm not familiar with the controller widgets. So if you just give me a quick walkthrough of what I need to figure out.
Okay, let's do that one. So sorry, I think we discussed that before we kicked off. So just for the sake of our viewers and anyone looking at this picture, I'm working on the one hand on the DXF widget, and on the other hand, I'm working on some enhancements on the 3D viewer. And one of the enhancements that I'm working on is the capability to render the S parameter in a G1 move, which is spindle speed or laser power, in a different shade or a different opacity actually. More transparent if it's a lower value and more solid if it's a higher value. But I'm also working slightly more longer term on adding more firmware support into Chilipeppr, like SmoothieWare and Marlin, and the Marlin's been 8 months down the line. I neglected it a little, but that has to be picked up again. And all these different firmwares have different, from my selfish perspective, being the lasers, of course, have different values that they expect inside of a file for the S value. So in the case of Gerbil, it's between 0 and 255. In the case of Smoothie, it's between 0 and 1, with decimals being the important part. And for Gerbil 0.9J, it is between 0 and 10,000 by default. Now, if you generate a file for Gerbil, for instance, and its values is 0 to 255, and the viewer expects the maximum value to be 10,000 because it thinks it's Gerbil 0.9 and it's not, it's actually 0.8. Then when you render it, it basically comes out as completely transparent and you don't see the file at all. Actually, I can demonstrate that already. Let me demonstrate it. Chilipeppr / Plasma is my current play workspace.
Wonderful.
I'm gonna just off screen generate 2 different G-code files. But I need to stop and run it. I'm going to create a file for Smoothie.
Nice.
Sorry, 1 second. Either get up, LaserWeb, raster. Okay, I'm rastering the Smoothie file. 1 second. Saving the G-code. Showing folder. So this is a raster sample Smoothie. Okay, now let me just generate one for Gerbil as well. Debug Gerbil. There's a sample Gerbil. Okay. So now, let's assume that we have the 3D viewer expecting a G-code file that contains values up to 255.
Yes.
Let's look at the G-code here. So the G-code I dropped in contains a couple of G1 moves, where a value of S25 means 10%, and we'll have to scroll, but S255 would be pitch black, maximum shade.
Yes.
If I now take the same file that was rendered for a smoothie board and I drop it on, you see it comes out a lot lighter. Actually, this isn't a smoothie. This is just a generic one that goes between 0 and 100.
Okay.
So we're expecting black to be 255, but the highest value in this file is 100.
Yes.
Now, if I was to take a real smoothie, actually, when you generate the same file for smoothie, minus debug smoothie.
What are you generating your G-code in right now?
In LaserWeb.
Okay.
That's how quick it is. I should make a separate Hangout video where I demonstrate LaserWeb to you.
Sure.
Save G-code. So here comes the smoothie file. You see, you only see I don't know if you can see the G0 green moves, but you can't even see the G1 moves. Because the highest intensity here is 1, and it's expecting 255.
Yeah, I see some very, very light green lines. Okay.
Yeah, the green lines is the G0 moves, but the G1s totally disappear. They're still there, but they're being rendered incorrectly. So as soon as I make this functionality live in the 3D viewer, and people load G-code files from all over the place without understanding the S value, we are going to have a bit of support trouble because people are going to complain about it.
Yes.
Now, one way is to just add this value into a storage setting which you save, and store it to your local settings. That I am using Gerbil, and my expectation is I've added a nice toggle button, but it takes up too much real estate. So what is the expectation? 1 being smoothie, 100 being generic, 255 is Gerbil, 10,000 is Gerbil, 0.9. And then it will interpret it correctly. Like now, if I set my S equals 1 and I pull that same smoothie file in, it works. Because now the expected range is what is in the G-code file.
Gotcha.
Now, the ideal is that we don't want the user to have to select it. So based on the controller we detect, and we can actually dump the settings from TinyG and from Smoothie and from all of them, and we can see what the maximum spindle PWM.
I think I just lost your audio. Peter, the last thing I heard you say was PWM. Okay. Standing by. Okay, please stand by while we resolve some technical difficulties. I think we'll have Peter up in a few minutes. Okay, I'm
Hello,
hearing
can you hear me?
various loud noises, so I think we're back on.
We are back on, but we're unfortunately using that crappy microphone that leads to a lot of feedback. So tell me if it's doing that.
At the moment, no.
Okay, good.
Very minimal,
The
I should say. Very minimal.
sorry, let me come back. Okay. I think I've actually got webcam here too. Anyway, okay. Where was I? I think I cut off while I was still demonstrating the
Yes, the
smoothie
last thing
file
I heard you
working
say
now.
was PWM. So we had the toggle going. Yep, you were on S1. And yeah, let's
So
pick up
the
somewhere
different
around there.
firmwares have so the different firmwares have different PWM settings. So smoothie is S0 to 1, S255. And what would be nice if we can just auto detect it by looking at what firmware the controller spits out. And the PWM setting for TinyG is stored in a setting. We can read that back and determine what the maximum value is. I can do the same with Smoothie. I can do the same with all the others. So a little bit of intelligence in all the controller widgets can get that for us. Then the user will never have to click any buttons. So I spoke to John about it, and John says, and I was actually on GitHub as well, that the TinyG widget, I'm just going to jump straight into the TinyG widget. The TinyG widget publishes a pub sub for the firmware. And it's here on this. Yeah, this one. Will broadcast out the firmware build version number when it sees it come in from the CNC controller to help other widgets pivot off that data. The firmware build number is requested when the on connect is sent.
Yes. So my concern is if you're already connected, right? So this will only fire off when a connection is made. If you're loading up Chilipeppr and you're already connected, because it does remember these things very well, you're never going to get that.
Correct. That's what John also said. He said it's not an issue. If I need a request, the capability to request that, he will add it for me.
Oh, well.
So that's coming. But right now, as I understand the way it works, is if I disconnect and reconnect, it should fire off the event. Correct?
Yes, it should.
Okay.
Based on pure speculation on my part alone, it should.
No, it's supposed to. So let me show. That was on the pull requests actually. Pull request closed. So I submitted this as a pull request, and then he said, no, it doesn't like that button, which I agree. And that's where he gave the advice to say, use this instead. So what I've done.
Stop highlighting so I can read it, please.
Just make it larger.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. My suggestion was going to be, why don't we just make a separate widget where somebody can manually configure this, and then that'll fire off the data to 3D Viewer until we figure out the firmware read method.
At the end of this conversation, he actually said he doesn't mind for now leaving it in the 3D Viewer and just making it look different, so it's not so in your face as it is. But it's still going to raise support questions, because a lot of users are not going to understand what it does, and I know it's going to be an issue. So it's going to be best if we can auto-detect it for now. At least if it shows it wrong, raise a little warning in the console for us to know what's wrong. So let me just see if this is the one that I've already... URL for chili load. That's still the default one. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. So tiny G.
By the way, did you see all the documentation in the pub sub menu? It's automatic.
Yes.
It's awesome.
I know. Like I said to him on GitHub, at 1,400 lines, you should stop complaining about. It was worth every minute to do that.
Absolutely. I emphasize though, but it's only 1,338 or 34. But yeah, 1,400. Yeah, absolutely.
So widget.js contains this slash firmware. So there's a process firmware build function where it pushes the publish out. That's in the tiny G widget that I'm now.
Yes.
Okay. And it's only declared in two spaces. It's at the top under the publish and at the bottom under the function. And this process firmware build function is called from the receive serial line somewhere. That one. On receive command. If it contains a firmware build, then it processes the firmware build. So we should be getting the publish out.
We should.
Correct. Okay. So now back to this workspace. Here's my custom viewer. So let's go and edit that. I've already got it.
Open up console. In my limited experience, whenever we get a publish call, it somehow gets logged to console most of the time.
Yes, I've seen that. It gets the publish. Sorry. Hold on one sec. I'm holding the mic in one hand and shielding its back from the speaker so we don't pick up too much interference. Now I'm working with one hand, and Control-Shift-I with a left hand is not as easy. So, well, with the right hand, I'm holding the mic left. So I have a tiny G on the desk. So let's clear the log, do a disconnect, do a connect, and that's all I'm getting.
Okay.
Okay. So let's troubleshoot a little deeper. So in my own widget, and that's why earlier in the conversation when we were speaking about the subscribe and foreign subscribe, I was wondering if that's maybe not the issue why it's not working. So on my 3D viewer, which is the same as the other one, I've got a foreign subscribe for firmware. I had it under subscribe initially, but it also didn't work, so I moved it to foreign subscribe and it's still not working. But I wasn't too sure if I'm just not understanding it correctly. But I looked at the axis, which is something that reports all the time, and that's sitting under foreign subscribe. So I figured, well, TinyG is also an external widget, just like the axis widget, so it makes more sense to have it there.
I agree.
Okay, so it is defined as a subscribe here. And then bash firmware. And then here I subscribe to it under what function? In the init, I subscribe to it. and say when it triggers, run my on firmware string function.
Yes.
Still looks good. Why can't I do go to definition, copy, paste?
Hang on. Give it a second. It seems to have worked for you before. It just takes a minute,
Yeah.
a moment for that option to become available. See, there you go. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, see, there on the commented one it's there, on the other one it's not.
Really?
Funny.
Okay.
Anyways, Control F still saves the day if you can't get it. So there's my this.on firmware string function with the data, and I'm just trying to alert it. I try to console log it, so if it happens, it happens. And then I'll set a variable called firmware equals whatever's in the data. But I don't know what this data look like. I'm sure it's actually JSON, and I'll first need to parse it into something useful to say firmware equals Smoothie, Gerbil, Tiny G, whatever.
Real
But
quick,
I'm not even
do you
getting
see a
this.
warning about firmware.
Yes. So that might be why it's not running.
Not defined.
Okay, let's take that out and just log it.
Well,
Yeah, I didn't
if
see
that's
that
a new
before.
variable,
Yes.
it's a little more expensive.
But I do have
we
it
should
higher
still-
up. That might be what's tripping it. You're right. Okay.
And then you also don't
I'm
have a
feeling
semicolon at the end of console.log. Which, when it's the last line of the function, I have seen that not cause an error, but, you know, still fix it.
No. It's always best to have it.
Of course.
Okay, refresh. Oh, no, wait. That's in a workspace. And I need to do a workspace because I need all the widgets, and I don't have it in the test for the... There's not... The Tiny G isn't in the test for the 3D viewer. So let me just do the publish.
But with one block of code, it could be.
Yeah, it is. But I don't want it to be because I'm using the 3D viewer in lots of places. So I don't actually want to force the Tiny G in there.
Oh yeah, right. You're developing 3D viewer. Sorry, my mindset is always I have a widget driving the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay, good. So that's open. Oh, that's pushed. Let's refresh it. I hope it was just a typo, then I'll be so lucky.
I have a feeling that it wasn't, but I'd love to be wrong.
It's okay. Let's see, widgets open and everything. Disconnect and connect. Nope. Yes.
JSON.parse. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm trying to do an alert with JSON data.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Show me that line, please.
Going there now. At least that works. Okay. Actually, I don't need to show you that line because after I wrote that, I saw on the Tiny G what they actually send. So let's just go back to process firmware. So he sends it as FB float, FB, and HB. That's what's in that pub data. So that's the JSON there that we send.
And what are those things? Do we know?
I have no idea. That's why I wanted to log them.
Do you want to do JSON.stringify to make it nice and simple?
I'm just getting lost on where I am there. So let's take out the alert because we don't need that. Hold on, I'm going to tap the mic. We might get a bit of feedback, but then at least I've got two hands for typing. In LaserWeb main.js, I have a stringify function I can borrow.
I just sent you a line for that.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Oh, that's easy. 3D viewer.
Stick that inside the console.log.
Yeah, of course, in a console, yeah. Like that.
Yep.
And do the whole publish thing. Oh, while I got you here, you know what's an irritation of runme.js? if there's a
Listening.
typo and I refresh the page, that the script doesn't handle the error and crashes, and I have to start it again.
Yeah. Also, if the any of the files are empty, if you try to run it on an empty template like me with the 20 widgets exported, a bunch of other
I don't
stuff
have
too.
the skills to add it, but it's basically just a bit of error handling that's missing.
Okay. I'll pass it along.
Two files change and just refresh again. Then I've noticed, but that's obviously GitHub's fault, nothing else. But after a publish, it takes like 5 or 6 seconds before it actually is available in RAW.
Oh, so
that's not
I don't refresh the page. I just refresh the one that you're in right now, and it pulls it once again.
Now,
wait, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about
I refresh this to push it to GitHub.
Right.
And then I still need to refresh the workspace to do a chilipeppr.load from raw GitHub.
Yeah, I'm not. I wasn't talking about Chilipeppr. I was talking about just the widget test itself.
Yeah.
Right. Gotcha.
Okay, so now let's clear, disconnect, and connect. Oops. Disconnect. I'm going to leave it disconnect, then refresh.
Okay.
I'm sure I'm going to have to bug John to add a way for me to request it to the TinyG widget.
Probably.
And to the Gerbil widget, and any future widgets. Okay, and well, it automatically connected. That sucks. There we fired.
Okay.
Line
Jason
1, column 5.
That isn't our code, though.
That's okay.
We'll deal with it at some point.
What I can do is I can fork the TinyG widget. Then when he constructs that JSON, I'll add some console log statements to each of those individual ones, see what's in there, and then see which of the parameters in the JSON we need to pull out and then work with that.
Exactly.
A bit more effort, but it'll still work.
It's the minimum
bigger issue because of a stupid typo. Why is there a typo? That works.
Nah,
I don't like Cloud9.
No, those are just global variables. Whether that's intentional is not my concern.
No, I accidentally ended up on my LaserWeb project, and it was like 3 exclamation, no, a ton of exclamation marks. C is not defined, but that's global variables. It gets defined there, so screw you. Please don't ever put use strict in any of my projects. It breaks.
Some of the code that we've been talking about on the side, it's got one of those before every single function.
Yeah, so, it's fine.
That's been fun.
That's why coding in JavaScript is so much fun, though. It doesn't really break it. It causes some funny bugs that you think is working and is not working because it doesn't actually error out, but it's still, from a beginner perspective, it's not as frustrating as some of the other languages. Like in Python, if you don't do your freaking indentations right, it doesn't work. I mean, come on.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Good, thank you. You sorted that one out?
Absolutely. I did nothing, but I'm happy to have been present while it got fixed. Or
we've made progress, that's all that counts.
Whichever one it is.
Definitely. That's awesome, dude. Right. Then I'm out of questions.
Okay, wonderful. Anything you want to wrap up with for our 3 viewers?
No, I think just keep watching the GitHub commit logs, and I'll let you know. Oh, actually, no. Watch the Google Plus community. I'll post screenshots and stuff there of major progress. That'll be better than watching a boring commit log of me fixing a typo and having a commit for that.
Okay. You know how to get in touch?
Lekker. I'll shout, definitely. Thanks, Emil. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Taking the time out of the day.
Absolutely.
Awesome.